I stood in front of Travis with my resignation letter, hands trembling slightly despite my determination. His reaction was exactly what I expected. "You'll never find anything better," my boss laughed, leaning back in his expensive leather chair. His eyes narrowed as he added, "You're nothing without this company." The words stung, but I had prepared for this moment for weeks. I smiled and replied softly, "You're right. Thank you for everything." Confusion flashed across his face as I turned and walked out, my secret still safely hidden. 2 weeks later, he saw the announcement that changed everything in our industry. 3 years ago, I joined Walker & Reed Marketing with stars in my eyes and ambition in my heart. The gleaming 40-story building in downtown Seattle housed some of the most prestigious marketing firms in the Pacific Northwest, and I couldn't believe I had landed a position at one of them. After 2 years at a smaller agency where I felt my creativity was stifled, this seemed like the opportunity of a lifetime. Travis Bennett, the creative director, had a reputation for innovative campaigns that won industry awards year after year. During my interview, his charisma and confidence dazzled me. He showed me the wall of accolades, the sleek conference rooms, and introduced me to a team of professionals who all seemed both intimidated by and in awe of him. "We only hire the best here, Flora," he told me, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "I see potential in you, but you'll have to prove yourself." I was more than willing to prove myself. My previous job had been stable but creatively suffocating. Here, the energy was electric. The open office space buzzed with ideas, client calls, and the click-clack of keyboards as people worked to meet tight deadlines. The view of Elliott Bay from the office windows reminded us daily that we were among the elite. My first few months went smoothly. I handled smaller clients with dedication, staying late to perfect every detail of my presentations. My campaigns for a local coffee chain and a boutique hotel received positive feedback, and I started to feel like I belonged. Then came the opportunity I had been waiting for. ValueTech, our biggest client, needed a fresh approach for their new product line. Travis assigned me to assist on the account, which I took as a sign of his growing trust in my abilities. "Don't disappoint me," was his only guidance. For 3 weeks, I barely saw my apartment. I researched market trends, competitive analyses, and innovative marketing approaches. I developed concepts that pushed boundaries while remaining true to ValueTech's brand identity. I created mock-ups, wrote compelling copy, and prepared a comprehensive presentation with multiple campaign options. The night before the client meeting, I sent Travis my completed work, proud of what I had accomplished and excited to present alongside him the next day. The morning of the presentation, Travis called me into his office. "I've reviewed your materials," he said. "I'll handle the presentation alone. The clients know me, and I don't want to confuse things by introducing a new team member." Disappointed but understanding, I nodded and took a seat at the back of the conference room as the ValueTech executives arrived. What happened next left me stunned. Travis presented my entire campaign. Every concept, every tagline, every strategy I had developed over those 3 exhausting weeks, he presented as his own. He never once mentioned my name or my contribution. The ValueTech team loved it, praising his creativity and innovative approach. After they left, I waited until we were alone in the conference room. "Travis, I noticed you presented all my ideas without acknowledging my work," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked at me with cold amusement. "Your ideas? Please, Flora. Your concepts were mediocre at best. I completely transformed them. What I presented bears little resemblance to your amateurish drafts." I stood there, mouth open in disbelief. The campaigns were mine, down to the exact wording I had crafted. "This is how it works in the real world," he continued. "You provide raw materials, and I turn them into gold. Be grateful you're learning from the best." As I walked back to my desk, a cold realization settled in my stomach. I had glimpsed the true Travis Bennett, and what I saw disturbed me. But I had worked so hard to get here. I couldn't just walk away from this opportunity. I told myself this was just how the industry worked, that I needed to pay my dues. I didn't realize then that this was just the beginning of a pattern that would eventually push me to my breaking point. Following the ValueTech presentation, my work life transformed in subtle but significant ways. Travis began watching me closer, finding fault with details that had never been issues before. "The font is 2 points too large," he would say. or "This color scheme lacks sophistication." When I offered suggestions during team meetings, Travis would cut me off mid-sentence or dismiss my ideas with a wave of his hand. "Let's hear from someone with more experience," he would say, even when discussing concepts similar to those he had presented as his own to Value Tech. The first time he criticized me publicly during a team brainstorming session, I was caught off guard. "That's the kind of basic thinking that keeps campaigns mediocre," he announced to the room after I suggested a social media strategy for a new client. "This is why you're still junior level, Flora." The room fell silent. I felt my cheeks burn as 14 pairs of eyes looked anywhere but at me. After the meeting, I locked myself in a bathroom stall for 10 minutes, fighting back tears and trying to regain my composure. These public humiliations became regular occurrences. Travis would ask me to present ideas only to tear them apart in front of everyone. He would assign me projects with impossible deadlines, then criticize the quality when I inevitably couldn't perfect every detail in the time allowed. Despite this treatment, clients often praised my work directly when they saw it. Several mentioned my fresh perspective and attention to detail in emails that included Travis. These compliments seemed to only intensify his negativity toward me. It was during this difficult period that I formed a friendship with Melanie Parker, the senior graphic designer. 15 years my senior with a portfolio of award-winning work, Melanie had been with Walker and Reed for 8 years and had the security to speak her mind. "I've watched Travis do this before," she told me over lunch one day. "He finds someone talented, uses them until they burn out, then discards them. The fact that he feels threatened by you is actually a compliment." "Threatened? He's the creative director. I'm just trying to survive here." Melanie raised an eyebrow. "Travis climbed to his position by taking credit for other people's work. People like you who actually have original ideas scare him." Her words made me see my situation differently. I began to notice how Travis treated other talented team members with similar subtle sabotage, while rewarding mediocrity from those who never challenged his authority. My suspicions about unfair treatment were confirmed when a spreadsheet was accidentally shared with the entire creative team, quickly deleted, but not before I saw the salary figures. Male colleagues with similar or even less responsibility than mine were making 30% more. Jeremy, who had started 3 months after me with less experience, was making $15,000 more annually. Armed with this knowledge and encouraged by Melanie, I decided to request a performance review and salary adjustment. I spent a week gathering evidence of my contributions, client testimonials, and successful campaign metrics. I scheduled a meeting with Travis, practiced my talking points, and entered his office with professional confidence. "I appreciate you taking the time to discuss my performance," I began, opening my portfolio of accomplishments. Travis leaned back in his chair, barely glancing at my carefully prepared materials. "Let's cut to the chase, Flora. You want more money?" "I want fair compensation based on my contributions and comparative to my peers," I corrected him. A cold smile spread across his face. "You know, I have connections throughout this industry. Every creative director in Seattle knows me. One word from me can make or break a career." The implied threat hung in the air between us. "I've also heard some concerning things about your work at your previous agency," he continued. "Information that would be damaging if it became widely known." My mind raced. There was nothing negative about my previous work. My former boss had given me an excellent recommendation. This was a bluff, but a terrifying one. "You're in a good position here, Flora. Don't push for more than you deserve. Many talented people would kill for your job." As I left his office, the weight of my situation crashed down on me. I was trapped in a toxic environment with a boss who was now openly threatening my professional reputation. Leaving seemed impossible. How would I find another position if Travis blacklisted me? But staying meant enduring daily psychological warfare that was already taking its toll. That night, I sat on my apartment balcony until 3 in the morning, watching the Seattle skyline and feeling more alone than I ever had in my life. The next few months became a blur of anxiety and dread. Each morning, I would wake up with a knot in my stomach, counting the hours until I could leave the office. Sleep became elusive, and when it came, it was filled with dreams of being trapped in the Walker and Reed building as the walls closed in. My friend Allison noticed the change in me when we met for our monthly dinner. You look exhausted, she said, concern etched on her face. What's going on? I tried to explain the situation with Travis, but found myself downplaying it. It's just a demanding job. Every agency has difficult personalities. Flora, the last 3 times we planned to get together, you canceled because of work. You used to paint on weekends. When was the last time you picked up a brush? She was right. My watercolor set gathered dust in the corner of my apartment. My running shoes, once worn daily for morning jogs along the waterfront, sat untouched for weeks. Even reading, my lifelong passion, had been replaced by mindless scrolling through social media in an attempt to numb my brain after exhausting days. The physical symptoms became impossible to ignore. I experienced my first panic attack in the office bathroom after Travis publicly questioned my commitment during a team meeting. My heart raced so fast I thought I was having a heart attack. My hands tingled and I couldn't catch my breath. 20 terrifying minutes passed before I could compose myself enough to return to my desk. These attacks became more frequent. I developed insomnia, often lying awake until dawn, then dragging myself to work on 2 or 3 hours of restless sleep. I lost weight as my appetite diminished, and dark circles became permanent fixtures under my eyes. Despite my deteriorating condition, a small professional victory appeared. ValueTech was launching a new enterprise software solution and specifically requested me for the campaign. They asked for you by name, Travis said, his voice tight with barely contained irritation. Apparently, someone there was impressed by some mock-ups you sent directly to their team. I hadn't sent anything directly. The ValueTech marketing director must have recognized my design style from materials I had created for their previous campaigns. I'll assign you as lead, Travis continued, but I'll need to approve everything before it goes to the client. This small recognition should have been a bright spot, but Travis ensured it wasn't. He withheld key information about the project timelines, excluded me from important client calls, and changed requirements at the last minute. During this period, I began taking lunch breaks away from the office. Previously, I had eaten at my desk, working through lunch like many of my colleagues. Now, I needed the physical distance, even if just for an hour. I found a small cafe 6 blocks away, where nobody from Walker and Reed ever went. The first few times I simply sat alone, enjoying the respite from the oppressive office atmosphere. By the 3rd week of this new routine, Travis had noticed. Taking long lunches now? He remarked one afternoon when I returned to the office. Must be nice to have so much free time when we're facing client deadlines. I had been gone exactly 1 hour, but his message was clear. My absence had been noted and disapproved. The following week, I noticed Peter, an eager new hire, coincidentally appearing at the same cafe. He sat at a nearby table, pretending to be engrossed in his phone but obviously watching me. The next day, he showed up again, and I knew this was no coincidence. Returning to the office early, I overheard Peter in Travis's office. She just sits alone with her notebook, Peter was saying. No idea what she's writing, but she seems pretty focused. Keep an eye on her, Travis replied. I want to know if she's meeting with anyone. The realization that Travis had assigned someone to spy on me during my lunch breaks should have been the last straw, but the final breaking point came with the ValueTech presentation. After weeks of preparation, I had developed a comprehensive campaign for their new software launch. The night before the client meeting, Travis requested my final presentation materials. I need to review everything before tomorrow, he said. The next morning, as I prepared to present to ValueTech, Travis pulled me aside. There's been a change of plans. I'll handle the presentation. But ValueTech specifically requested me, I protested. They requested you to work on it, not present it. This is too important to risk. Once again, I found myself sitting in the back of the conference room watching Travis present my work. But this time, something went wrong. The ValueTech executives looked increasingly uncomfortable as Travis outlined a campaign that would clearly exceed their budget. This seems much more extensive than what we discussed initially, their marketing director said. Our budget cap was clearly communicated as $300,000. Travis looked momentarily confused. The campaign requirements necessitated a more comprehensive approach. The budget we're proposing is $500,000. The room grew tense. After an uncomfortable silence, the ValueTech CEO spoke up. We specifically mentioned budget constraints in our brief. This proposal doesn't work for us. The meeting ended abruptly, with promises to reconsider the approach. As soon as the clients left, Travis stormed into the creative area. "Flora, my office. Now." Behind closed doors, he exploded. "You deliberately created a campaign that exceeded their budget. This makes us look completely unprofessional." "I was never told about a budget cap," I said, genuinely confused. "You handled all the preliminary meetings. It was in the brief. How could you miss something so fundamental? This is exactly the kind of oversight that makes me question your future here." That afternoon, I received an official notice of probation from HR, citing failure to adhere to client requirements resulting in potential account loss. I sat at my desk, stunned and defeated. Then my phone buzzed with an email from Sarah, the ValueTech marketing director. "Flora, I'm confused about what happened today. We had clearly communicated our budget limitations to Travis in 2 separate emails and our initial brief. I specifically remember him acknowledging the 300,000 ceiling. Can we discuss what happened?" I stared at the email, the pieces finally falling into place. Travis had deliberately withheld the budget information, setting me up to fail. He had created a situation where I would appear incompetent, potentially losing a major client, and now I was on probation. This wasn't just manipulation or taking credit. This was calculated sabotage of my career. I forwarded the email to my personal account, my hands shaking with a mixture of anger and clarity. This was the evidence I needed, proof of Travis's deliberate undermining. Something inside me shifted. I had reached my breaking point. The truth about my lunch breaks would have shocked Travis if he knew. For the past month, I hadn't been sitting alone in that cafe by chance. I had been meeting with Angela Winters, former creative director at Walker & Reed, who had left the company 2 years before I joined. Our connection began unexpectedly. After a particularly successful campaign I created for a smaller client received industry recognition, I received a LinkedIn message. "Impressive work on the Cascade campaign. Would love to connect about potential collaboration. Angela Winters, Horizon Creative." I recognized the name immediately. Angela was something of a legend. She had built Walker & Reed's creative reputation before departing suddenly. Office rumors suggested a falling out with Travis, who had been her second in command before taking over her position. Our first meeting was purely exploratory. Angela had heard about my work through industry channels and was curious about the current creative direction at Walker & Reed. She was warm, attentive, and genuinely interested in my perspective, qualities I had almost forgotten could exist in a creative director. "I've been following your work," she told me over coffee. "You have a distinct approach to storytelling in your campaigns. It's refreshing." Her recognition of my abilities, without qualification or diminishment, nearly brought me to tears. It had been so long since anyone in a senior position had validated my talent. Angela had started Horizon Creative after leaving Walker & Reed. "It was time to build something that aligned with my values," she explained. "An agency where creativity is nurtured, not exploited." Horizon was still small, just 8 full-time employees, but growing steadily with a reputation for innovative work and ethical practices. They had recently acquired several mid-sized clients and were positioning themselves to compete for larger accounts. After our third meeting, Angela broached the subject directly. "Flora, I'm going to be blunt. You don't belong at Walker & Reed, not with Travis at the helm." I stiffened defensively. Despite everything, I still felt a misplaced loyalty to the prestigious firm. "Travis and I worked together for 4 years, she continued. "I know his methods. He finds talented people, uses them until they burn out, then discards them. It's why I left." Her words echoed what Melanie had told me months earlier. "He's threatened by original talent," Angela continued. "It reminds him of his own limitations. The more promising you are, the more dangerous you seem to him." Over the next several weeks, our lunch meetings became more frequent and focused. Angela began actively mentoring me, reviewing my portfolio, offering constructive feedback, and helping me recognize my own worth in the industry. What Travis would have found most threatening was that Angela had also been meeting with former Walker & Reed clients who had become dissatisfied with the agency's performance since her departure, including ValueTech. Sarah from ValueTech reached out to me last month, Angela revealed during one of our meetings. They're not happy with the direction of their recent campaigns. They specifically mentioned your work as the only bright spot. As our meetings continued, I began to see a possible escape from my situation. Angela never explicitly offered me a position, but her mentorship and growing investment in my career suggested the possibility. I'm building something different at Horizon, she would say. A place where talent is recognized and nurtured, where credit is given where it's due, and where collaboration doesn't mean theft of ideas. It sounded like a dream compared to my daily reality. But leaving Walker and Reed terrified me. Travis's threats about industry connections weighed heavily on my mind. He says he can blacklist me throughout Seattle, I confessed to Angela. She laughed, a genuine sound that contained no mockery. Travis overestimates his influence. Yes, he has connections, but so do I. And unlike Travis, I've built relationships based on respect and integrity, not fear and manipulation. While my future was beginning to take shape in these clandestine meetings, I made an accidental discovery that changed everything. Working late organizing files for a client transfer, I accessed a shared drive that normally required additional permissions. A system update must have temporarily affected the security settings, because suddenly I had access to financial records normally restricted to account managers and executives. What I found disturbed me deeply. Multiple clients were being billed for services never rendered and hours never worked. One file contained explicit instructions for creative billing that outlined how to pad invoices with vague service descriptions. Another showed different versions of the same invoice, one for internal records showing actual services, and another for the client with inflated hours and added line items. This wasn't just unethical, it was potentially fraudulent. Clients were being systematically overcharged by 10 to 30% across the board. The practice appeared widespread and deliberate. I quietly copied key documents to a secure cloud drive, then carefully exited the system, my heart pounding. This information was dynamite, potentially ruinous for Walker and Reed if it became public. I wasn't sure what to do with it, but I knew it might provide protection if Travis ever tried to make good on his threats. At our next lunch meeting, I confided in Angela about my discovery. I'm not surprised, she said grimly. I suspected similar practices were beginning before I left. It's one of the reasons I departed when I did. There were financial discrepancies I couldn't get straight answers about. What should I do with this information? I asked. For now, keep it secure. It's evidence of serious ethical violations, possibly fraud. If you ever decide to leave, consult with a lawyer about your obligations and protections. She paused, looking at me intently. Speaking of leaving, I think it's time we talk about your future, Flora. Angela formally offered me a position as creative director at Horizon Creative. The role would include significant creative freedom, higher compensation than I currently received, and most surprisingly, equity partnership after 1 year. I'm building this agency for the long term, she explained. I want partners who share my vision and values. You're exactly the kind of talent and character I want to invest in. The offer stunned me. From junior creative to director with partnership potential was a jump I hadn't imagined possible. Why me? I asked, genuinely puzzled. I'm not even 30. I've never held a director position. Because you have what can't be taught: genuine creative instinct and integrity. The rest is just experience, and you'll gain that quickly in the right environment. We discussed timing and strategy. Angela suggested I prepare for a clean, professional exit from Walker and Reed, giving proper notice and fulfilling all obligations. The high road is always best, she advised, no matter how they've treated you. Before making my final decision, I consulted with a lawyer about my legal obligations regarding the billing information I had discovered. She confirmed that while I had an ethical duty to report fraud, I needed to be careful about my own liability and potential retaliation. Document everything, she advised. Keep records of any intimidation or threats. If you decide to resign, do so professionally, fulfilling all contractual obligations. With legal advice and Angela's offer securing my future, I prepared my resignation letter, planning to give 2 weeks' notice. The night before, I barely slept, rehearsing what I would say to Travis, anticipating his reaction, and reminding myself that I had options now. I was no longer trapped. The next morning, fate intervened in a way I couldn't have anticipated. Travis called an unexpected all-staff meeting at 9 a.m. These impromptu gatherings usually meant client losses or organizational changes, rarely anything positive. The entire creative department filed into the largest conference room, exchanging nervous glances. Travis stood at the head of the table, flanked by the HR director and the agency's financial officer. "I'll get straight to the point," Travis began, his expression severe. "Walker and Reed is implementing a strategic restructuring effective immediately." The room tensed collectively. "The advertising landscape is changing, and we need to adapt our team structure to remain competitive. We're streamlining operations by eliminating several positions and redistributing responsibilities." Over the next 15 minutes, Travis outlined a restructuring that eliminated 3 design positions, 2 copywriter roles, and consolidated several accounts under fewer account managers. Then he turned his attention to my role. "Flora, your position will be evolving. You'll now be handling both the Value Tech account and taking over the Westfield Industries portfolio." Westfield was our second largest client, currently managed by a team of 3. He was effectively doubling my workload while eliminating my support staff. "This represents a chance to prove yourself," Travis continued, his smile not reaching his eyes. "If you can successfully manage both accounts for the next quarter, we'll revisit your compensation." The message was clear. Take on twice the work, with no guarantee of increased pay, or join those being let go. It was a calculated move, designed to either crush me under impossible expectations or force me to quit. After the meeting, shell-shocked employees returned to their desks. Melanie caught my eye, her expression grim. "He's setting you up to fail," she whispered as we walked past each other. I knew she was right. This wasn't an opportunity. It was sabotage dressed as promotion. In that moment, any lingering doubts about leaving vanished. The resignation letter in my bag, which I had planned to deliver at the end of the day after careful consideration, now felt urgent. This public humiliation was the final push I needed. I requested a meeting with Travis immediately. His assistant, Karen, looked surprised at my directness. "He's booked solid today with transition meetings," she said. "Please tell him it's regarding the Westfield transition. I have concerns that need immediate attention." 20 minutes later, I was told he could see me briefly before lunch. That meant I had 3 hours to wait, my resignation letter burning a hole in my bag, my resolve strengthening with every passing minute. I used the time to back up my personal work files, clear personal items from my desk, and say subtle goodbyes to colleagues I valued. When Melanie noticed me emptying my desk drawer, she raised an eyebrow questioningly. I nodded almost imperceptibly, and she responded with a small smile of approval. At 11:45, I was finally permitted to enter Travis's office. He kept me waiting for an additional 7 minutes while he finished a phone call that could clearly have been ended earlier. "Make it quick," he said after hanging up. "I have a lunch appointment." I placed my resignation letter on his desk. "I'm resigning. Effective today." He looked at the letter, then at me, surprise briefly flickering across his features before settling into amusement. "Is this because of the restructuring? You're turning down an opportunity to advance because it requires actual hard work?" "I appreciate the time I've spent at Walker and Reed," I said, sticking to the professional script I had practiced. "But I believe it's time for me to pursue other opportunities." Travis's amusement grew. He leaned back in his chair and actually laughed. "Other opportunities? You'll never find anything better. Walker and Reed is the top agency in Seattle. Where exactly do you think you're going to go?" His condescension fueled my resolve. "I've made my decision. Let me make something clear, Flora. You're nothing without this company. I gave you a chance when you had a mediocre portfolio and limited experience. I put you on major accounts. I shaped whatever talent you might have." Each word was designed to diminish me, to reinforce the narrative he had been constructing for 3 years that I was lucky to be employed by Walker and Reed, that my success depended entirely on his goodwill. In the past, these words would have cut deep. Now, strengthened by Angela's mentorship and the knowledge of my own worth, they sounded desperate, even pathetic. I smiled calmly. "You're right. Thank you for everything. My response clearly caught him off guard. He expected argument or defensiveness, not calm agreement. I'll have HR prepare your exit paperwork, he said, recovering quickly. You'll need to sign a standard non-compete and confidentiality agreement. I'll review any paperwork before signing, I replied. You can clear out your desk and leave immediately. Karen will escort you out. I nodded, relieved that the confrontation had gone relatively smoothly. Goodbye, Travis. I wish you and the agency well. As I turned to leave, he called after me. Just remember what I told you about my connections in this industry, Flora. Seattle is a small town for advertising professionals. The threat was clear, but no longer terrifying. I had options now, and more importantly, I had evidence of Walker and Reed's fraudulent billing practices if things ever escalated to legal threats. I walked out of Travis's office feeling lighter than I had in months. Karen, who had always been professional but distant, gave me a small nod of what seemed like respect as she gathered her things to escort me out. Word traveled quickly. By the time I reached my desk, several colleagues were already waiting to say quiet goodbyes. Melanie hugged me tightly. Smart move, she whispered. Call me later. As I packed the last of my personal items, Judy from HR appeared with a folder of documents. I need you to sign these before you leave, she said, looking uncomfortable. Standard exit paperwork. I opened the folder to find not only the expected confidentiality agreement, but also a highly restrictive non-compete that would prevent me from working with any marketing clients in Washington state for 2 years. This non-compete wasn't part of my original employment contract, I said, keeping my voice even. Judy shifted uncomfortably. Travis insists it must be signed to receive your final paycheck and unused vacation pay. I understand, but I've already consulted a lawyer about my exit, I replied calmly. Withholding earned compensation is illegal in Washington state. I'm happy to sign a reasonable confidentiality agreement, but I'll need my attorney to review this non-compete. Judy's eyes widened slightly at the mention of legal consultation. I'll note that you've declined to sign at this time, she said, her tone professional but her expression suggesting she understood my position. As Karen escorted me to the elevator, several colleagues nodded or gave subtle waves of support. The news of my resignation and the morning's restructuring had created a buzz of speculation and, I suspected, admiration from those who wished they could also escape. In the elevator, Karen surprised me by speaking candidly. For what it's worth, I think you're making the right choice. Things are changing here, and not for the better. It was the most personal comment she had ever made to me. As the elevator doors opened to the lobby, I stepped out into the bright Seattle morning feeling a surreal mixture of terror and freedom. 3 years of professional anxiety and diminishment were behind me. Ahead lay uncertainty, but also possibility. I took a deep breath of the cool spring air and texted Angela. It's done. I'm free. The 2 weeks following my resignation were transformative. I started at Horizon Creative the very next Monday, welcomed by a team that treated me with immediate respect and appreciation. The contrast between the two work environments couldn't have been more stark. At Walker and Reed, ideas were currency to be stolen and claimed. At Horizon, collaboration meant building on each other's creativity with full acknowledgement of contributions. Where Travis had ruled through intimidation, Angela led through inspiration and clear expectations. My first project was helping to prepare for an upcoming pitch to ValueTech, who had become increasingly dissatisfied with Walker and Reed's work. Sarah, their marketing director, had reached out to Angela directly after their disastrous budget misalignment. They've been looking for an excuse to explore other options, Angela explained. The budget incident was the final straw. Working on the ValueTech pitch felt like redemption. I was able to incorporate many of the innovative ideas I had developed but that Travis had dismissed, now with a team that recognized and enhanced them. The pitch meeting was scheduled for my second Thursday at Horizon. The morning of the presentation, my phone buzzed with an email from a former colleague at Walker and Reed. Travis is furious. He just found out ValueTech is meeting with Horizon. He connected the dots about your lunch meetings with Angela. Be careful. I showed the message to Angela, who looked concerned but not surprised. We knew this was coming, she said. Let's focus on the pitch. Success is the best response. The ValueTech team arrived at Horizon's modest but stylish offices that afternoon. I recognized Sarah immediately, along with their CEO and two other executives I had worked with previously. Their surprise at seeing me was evident. "Flora," Sarah said warmly, "I had no idea you'd joined Horizon." "Recent development," I replied with a smile. "I'm excited to show you what we've been working on." The presentation went brilliantly. Angela led the introduction, then turned it over to me for the creative concepts. I presented 3 campaign options, each tailored to their target demographics and carefully designed to stay within their budget constraints. The ValueTech team was visibly impressed. Their questions were engaged and enthusiastic, focusing on implementation details rather than raising concerns. "This is exactly the fresh approach we've been looking for," their CEO said as we wrapped up, "and the fact that you've actually listened to our budget requirements is refreshingly professional." They asked for minor adjustments to the second concept, which had been their clear favorite, and requested a follow-up meeting the following week to finalize details. After they left, the Horizon team celebrated with champagne. It wasn't a signed contract yet, but the signals were unmistakably positive. "They'll sign," Angela predicted confidently. "You were the secret weapon they didn't know we had." That evening, as I walked to my car in Horizon's small parking lot, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Is this your idea of professionalism?" Travis's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. "Stealing clients?" I took a deep breath. "Travis, I didn't steal anything. ValueTech approached Horizon, not the other way around." "After you fed them information about our internal processes. This is corporate espionage, and there will be consequences." "That's not what happened, and you know it," I said, keeping my voice steady. "They were unhappy with the service they were receiving. They're free to explore other options. You signed a confidentiality agreement. You have information about our clients and strategies, which I have not shared." The pitch Horizon presented was completely original work. "This isn't over," he snapped. "You've made a powerful enemy, Flora. I hope Angela's paying you enough to compensate for the career you just destroyed." The call ended abruptly. I stood in the parking lot, my hands shaking slightly despite my outward calm during the conversation. Travis's threats were empty legally. I had been careful not to violate any confidentiality obligations, but his vindictiveness was real. When I arrived home, I found 3 voicemails and 7 emails from Travis, each more threatening than the last. The final email veered into territory that made me uncomfortable. "You'll regret crossing me. I know people who can make sure you never work in this industry again. In fact, they can make sure you never work anywhere again." I forwarded the emails to Angela and to my lawyer, along with recordings of the voicemails. My lawyer responded immediately. "This constitutes harassment and potentially illegal threats. We should send a cease and desist letter immediately and document everything in case legal action becomes necessary." The next morning, my lawyer's office sent Travis and Walker and Reed's legal department a formal cease and desist letter, mentioning both the harassment and, subtly, my awareness of certain billing practices that could be of interest to clients and regulatory agencies. The billing fraud evidence was my insurance policy. I had no intention of using it offensively, but Travis needed to know I wasn't defenseless against his threats. The letter worked. The harassment stopped immediately. Through industry contacts, I learned that Walker and Reed's legal team had warned Travis that pursuing any action against me could open the door to investigations he definitely didn't want. 1 week later, ValueTech officially signed with Horizon Creative, becoming our largest client. The industry newsletter Adweek Northwest published a small announcement. ValueTech signs with Horizon Creative, announces Flora Wilson as new partner. The announcement included a quote from ValueTech's CEO praising Horizon's innovative approach and ethical business practices, a subtle dig at their former agency. I knew Travis would see it. I imagined his reaction, his fury at the public acknowledgement of my new role and the implicit rejection of his leadership. The thought brought not vindictive pleasure but a sense of validation. I had escaped a toxic situation and found success on my own terms. That evening, Angela took the entire Horizon team out to celebrate securing the ValueTech account. As champagne flowed and colleagues congratulated me, I felt a sense of belonging I had never experienced at Walker and Reed. To new beginnings, Angela toasted, raising her glass. And to karma finally working its magic. I smiled and raised my glass with the others, finally feeling at home in my professional life. The 6 months following ValueTech signing with Horizon were a whirlwind of growth and vindication. News of our partnership with such a significant client rippled through Seattle's advertising community, bringing attention to our small but growing agency. ValueTech wasn't the only client dissatisfied with Walker & Reed's service. Within 2 months, we received inquiries from 3 other businesses looking to make a change. 2 of them specifically mentioned my name, having worked with me during my time at Walker & Reed. "Your reputation precedes you," Angela commented, as we prepared for a pitch meeting with Northwest Financial, previously a Walker & Reed client. Clients remember who actually did the work, even when others took the credit. Horizon grew rapidly, adding 4 new team members to handle the increased workload. One of them was Melanie, who called me 6 weeks after my departure from Walker & Reed. "Things have gotten worse," she told me. "The restructuring was just the beginning. 3 more people were let go last week, and everyone's workload has doubled." I wasn't surprised. Travis's management style was unsustainable in the long term. "Are you still happy with your decision?" Melanie asked hesitantly. "Happier than I've been in years," I answered honestly. "Why do you ask?" There was a pause on the line. "I'm wondering if Horizon might need an experienced graphic designer." Angela hired Melanie immediately, recognizing her talent and experience. 2 other former colleagues followed in the subsequent months, each bringing valuable skills and client relationships to our growing team. Walker & Reed began to suffer visibly from the exodus of talent and clients. Industry gossip suggested they had lost 20% of their business in 4 months. Their once impressive office had a floor of empty desks, and their posting for 5 open positions suggested desperation rather than growth. Travis made one final attempt at retaliation 3 months after I left. He contacted several of our clients, including ValueTech, suggesting that Horizon had engaged in unethical business practices to secure their accounts. The attempt backfired spectacularly. Sarah from ValueTech forwarded his email directly to Angela with a note saying, "Thought you should see this. We've responded making it clear that our decision was based entirely on the quality of your work and the unprofessional experience we had with W&R. My lawyer sent a second, more strongly worded cease and desist letter, this time explicitly mentioning the evidence of fraudulent billing I possessed. We never heard from Travis directly again. By the 6-month mark, Horizon had doubled in size to 16 employees and moved to larger offices in a renovated warehouse in Seattle's Georgetown neighborhood. The space reflected Angela's vision, open and collaborative, but with quiet areas for focused work, filled with natural light and inspirational design elements. 1 year after my resignation, Horizon Creative held a celebration, marking both the agency's 3rd anniversary and my official induction as a partner. The event was attended by clients, employees, and industry colleagues. Angela presented me with a small golden key, symbolic of my new equity stake in the business. "When I started Horizon, I wanted to create an agency that valued creativity, integrity, and human dignity," she said in her speech. Flora embodies those values. Her journey to this partnership position demonstrates that talent and ethics can triumph, even in an industry often criticized for lacking both. As I looked around the room at my colleagues, including Melanie and others who had escaped the toxic environment of Walker & Reed, I felt profound gratitude. My professional nightmare had led to an opportunity I couldn't have imagined. During the celebration, Sarah from ValueTech pulled me aside. "Have you heard the news about Walker & Reed?" I shook my head. "They're under investigation by the State Attorney General's office for fraudulent billing practices. Apparently, a client audit uncovered discrepancies, and several other clients came forward with similar experiences. The news didn't bring me joy, but it did feel like justice. The unethical practices I had discovered had finally come to light through other channels. Travis would have to answer for more than just his abusive management style. 2 days after our celebration, I was working late at the office when I received an unexpected LinkedIn message from Peter, the junior employee Travis had once assigned to spy on my lunch breaks. "Congratulations on your partnership at Horizon. I wanted to let you know that Travis is gone from Walker & Reed. The board asked for his resignation following the billing investigation. The agency is undergoing a complete restructuring under new leadership. Thought you'd want to know. I sat back in my chair, absorbing the news. Travis's downfall hadn't been my goal, escaping his toxic influence, and building a successful career on my own terms had been my only objective. But there was undeniable symmetry in how events had unfolded. The following week, I interviewed a young designer fresh out of college. Her portfolio showed tremendous promise, but her nervous demeanor reminded me painfully of myself 3 years earlier. The technical skills can be developed, I told her as we discussed the position. What I value most is original thinking and integrity. Everything else can be learned. Relief flooded her features. My professor told me agencies only want polished work, and that I should just follow established formulas until I've earned the right to be creative. I smiled, remembering similar advice I had once received. At Horizon, we believe creativity isn't something you earn the right to express. It's something we hire you for from day one. As she left the interview, I realized I had come full circle. From a talented but insecure junior creative, bullied by an insecure boss, to a partner helping to shape the next generation of advertising professionals. The journey had been painful but ultimately transformative. That evening, Angela and I stayed late reviewing the agency's 5-year growth strategy. Did you ever imagine this is where you'd be when Travis was laughing at your resignation? She asked. I smiled, remembering that moment that felt simultaneously like yesterday and a lifetime ago. No, I was just trying to escape with my self-respect intact. Well, you did more than that. You helped build something better. Looking around at the agency we were growing together, I couldn't disagree. My mother had always told me that sometimes the worst experiences lead to the best opportunities, if you're brave enough to walk away and start again. In my case, those words had proven prophetically true. The most valuable lesson I had learned wasn't about advertising strategy or creative direction. It was about recognizing your own worth, even when others try to diminish it. About having the courage to leave toxic situations, even when the alternative is uncertain. And about the power of mentorship and community to heal professional wounds and create something better than what was left behind. Have you ever had to walk away from something secure to pursue something better? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories about professional resilience and triumph. Share this with anyone who might be struggling in a toxic work environment. Sometimes knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, your worth isn't determined by those who fail to see your value.